Welcome to the Broadband interview, hosted by DJ
Hello,
Intranet.
listeners. Welcome to the interview. You just heard I'm Better Off Alone by our guest, Irish DJ Farlo.
Right, how are you, man? Thanks for having me.
No problem. So first question. I've been listening to, your music and definitely have been hearing a lot of interesting influences.
hmm
How would you describe your music in general to like an outsider?
well, I suppose it's just a mix of lots of different electronic music that I've been listening to. I kind of say to people, it's the sort of electronic music, like music that I want to listen to myself, if that makes sense. Sort of stuff that I'd go out and listen to. I kind of try to bring that into my music. So, like, obviously, it's a lot of it's very house sort of centered now at the moment, but that could change completely in the future to techno or just whatever interests me at the time.
Right, right. What are your biggest influences right now? I know in a recent post you mentioned being influenced by a lot of like synthwave and 80s music. Is
Yeah,
are
yeah.
there other influences sort of affecting your sound right now?
Yeah, I've recently gone into a lot of breakbeat. So Bicep, who are actually another DJ duo from Belfast, so the same country from me. A lot of their music is really really cool, and I love the rhythms in it. As far as just throughout the years, I've always loved the producer Burial. His album Untrue, by me, is like, in my opinion, like the height of electronic music, and Aphex Twin would be another one, and just in general house, probably Daft Punk. I'd say they're like, for me, they kind of opened the door to house music for me, 100%.
Right, right. Yeah, same. I'm definitely you have amazing taste. I
Thanks very much.
um you've also been teasing a new EP recently. So
Yeah,
tell us about that. What can we expect?
yeah. So the new EP is called "Flowers by Irene." I got the name from a Simpsons episode. Don't ask me why.
Yeah, I know
Yeah,
which one.
yeah. I just thought, I was like, that's a cool name. So yeah, it's kind of primarily, I'd say, a house album. Like, I think four out of the six tracks on it are house. Um, but I think I wouldn't really be doing a service by saying it's just house, because there's also some jungle influence music on it, synthwave, like you mentioned earlier, um, and again with the sort of euphoric sort of breakbeat sort of techno, and with the last track. Um, I suppose it was probably made over a period of about a year, because a lot of these tracks that I made, they didn't really come to fruition until like recently, if that makes sense. Like, I've been trying to make them, I've been playing around with samples, but they never really, the vision was never really realized, and so on and off for about, with a lot of these songs, for about a year, I'd say. And I'm just really glad that it finally kind of all came together. I think, like, as a producer, there's probably nothing more satisfying than something you've been trying to make finally coming together. So it was just kind of like I like to think of it as like a various sort of collection of songs, like the best of the stuff that I've been making, into like one sort of body of work that I'm quite
That
proud of.
sounds really really exciting. I'm really
Yeah, I can't wait. Can't wait for everyone to hear
yeah.
it.
Of course. So looking back, I keep referencing your Instagram because you have a lot of stuff
Yeah,
on
there's a
there.
lot on there. There's a lot to unpack.
I noticed there are a lot of photos, or sort of a couple of photos of you performing. So I'm interested to see like how has performing sort of affected how you like approach music? Like, do you sort of think about like what sounds good on stage, what sounds good in a crowd?
Yeah, it's actually, that's actually interesting that you brought up, because I used to be in bands before I actually started playing like, electronic music. And I suppose when you're performing for people, you can kind of gauge the reaction of your songwriting. Now, actually, as a DJ, it's actually funny you mentioned. I only started. I was a producer before as a DJ, and I actually only played one gig as a DJ right before COVID started.
Mm,
Um, as a hip hop DJ for another artist in Ireland named Outsider YP, and I was up in Belfast actually. And it's just really unfortunate that COVID literally happened right after that, because I feel like I had opened a lot of doors at that point, and it just had all been taken away from me. But at the same time, I've gotten a lot of time to work on my music now, and I suppose, on the bright side, when we do, we're in a lockdown right now in my country, but when stuff hopefully opens up soon, I'll have a lot of material to play for people. And yeah, I just can't wait. But yeah, absolutely, performing, I think, is it's just, it's good to finally interact with people. Like, sure, I love producing in my bedroom, but I'd love to be, playing that music for people, you know. But yeah, I'm patient. I'm not in any rush really.
Yeah, it do be like that.
Oh, yeah,
So
absolutely.
I'm tell me more about the band that you were in before you started producing.
Yeah, so I was in.
What was that like? And then how did you transition to like producing stuff yourself?
Yeah, so I kind of grew up like ever since I was like 5 years old. Rock music was like that's kind of the household I was raised in. Rock music, and at the moment a lot of Irish traditional music. Um, so I was kind of raised in that sort of environment. Like I think I remember being like 5 years old, my dad bought like the Linkin Park Meteora LP, which actually had a lot of electronic influence on it. So I suppose I have to thank him a little bit for that. And like Iron Maiden and Oasis, um, and then I was learning piano since I was about 5, so I still kind of keep that up a little bit. And then I picked up the guitar when I was 11, and yeah, I just started a band with a bunch of friends. It was called Murmur. I had like a huge revolving door of lineups. It was ridiculous. Um, yeah, and we kind of made like I suppose you describe it as like alternative kind of punk music. I'm like a huge sort of punk fan. I feel like electronic music has a bit of that nature as well, in that sort of creativity and just general freedom. And the scene as well is so vibrant, and that it kind of I think mirrors a little bit like that. And yeah, we just played a few gigs. I think we played about 3, 4 gigs in total over the span of maybe 2 years. But during that time, I had actually picked up production, so I think you could say maybe my sight was sort of averted away from the band for a while, and it kind of just maybe that I didn't lose interest, but I kind of just focused on myself for a while and kind of worked on my own music, like my own tunes, because I'm a bit of a control freak. If that makes sense. Oh,
Yeah.
actually, I knocked off my video there. I'm a bit of a control freak, so being able to work on my own music and have no other kind of voices in there was kind of refreshing. But at the same time, I loved you know and being in the band, and I made some great friends, and it's really nice to collaborate with people sometimes.
Yeah, for sure. I'm really intrigued that you made the jump from like alt punk
Oh
to
yeah,
house.
one
Like
end, one end of the spectrum to the other completely. Like,
you're in a new collaborator project now. So like how has I guess how
yeah,
has being in a band sort of taught you how to really make the most out of collaboration?
yeah. I think the big kind of key word there is communication. You need to find a sort of common ground on a sort of like a similar vision that you're both sort of trying to work with. So I'm currently doing like as a project with my friend Keane, a duo called Civil P. Um, because we named the Civil P because we always joked around saying if we're not married by like the time we're 30, we're just about agreed to get a civil partnership, for taxes and all. And the kind of house music that we make is actually quite different to my own sort of house music. I'd describe it more as like just sort of easygoing party house music, like everyone can pick up and listen to. We recently released a remix of Olivia Rodrigo's Driver's License because it was popular. We just decided let's see what we can do with it. We actually turned out, we're pretty happy with the end result, and yeah, it's just really good, and like we're good friends. It's nice to have something we can both bond over, and people are really enjoying it as well. We've got great feedback, and we have a new tune coming out this month.
Ooh.
Um, I won't say the name because I know the profanity. You probably won't want to hear
Yeah.
it, but it has a samples a Nas song and an Ariana Grande song, actually positions by Ariana Grande, and yeah, I think it's really cool. A bit of MCing kind of vocals there in the sample, and nice, obviously nice, singing vocals by Ariana Grande, and yeah, we can't wait to release it. We think it's our best one yet, so can't
I
wait.
am the more you describe your music, the more I'm like you're doing a lot. Like
Oh yeah,
all your
like I'm all, man. To be
influences.
honest, I'm all over the place, especially with this lockdown. Like I just have a lot of time, so it's have to make the most of it. And to be honest, it probably sounds like I'm doing so much, but you have to, time management is important. Like I could be working on it all the time, but the reality is, maybe I work every day probably on my music, but I try not to overwork myself because I think there's a certain point where if you're working just so much and you're stressed, you're not going to be that productive. So you might as well,
Right.
take breaks. Work when you're sort of inspired, and when you're definitely getting onto something. If that makes sense.
Yeah, yeah. I've definitely enjoyed quarantine for in the sense that like it's given me time to like relax and take more
Oh,
time on my music
100%. Yeah.
rather than being like, okay, let's get a song out like now, like in
Yeah.
the next hour.
Yeah. No, you're 100% right. You're 100% right. It's I suppose obviously we'd all love to be going out our social life, but I suppose it's great that I have the music to keep me occupied, if you know what I mean.
Right, right.
Yeah.
Speaking of music, out of all the songs that you've made in all your
Ooh.
projects, which one would you say you're the most proud of so far, and
So
why?
far, do you mean like released or unreleased?
Released or unreleased, that's up to you. But yeah,
Oh,
which one and why?
I say both. For released, I would say probably I had a song called Poppies, and yeah, I was just really happy with how it turned out overall. It sort of had like a jungle influence. It was a little bit slower. I call it more nearly IDM in a certain way, if that makes sense. Um, I hate that term IDM because it's just such a broad word, but it's the only way to really describe it. So it was kind of a jungly tune, and people really liked it, and it got added to an official Spotify playlist.
Yes,
Um,
I saw in your profile you had it in your
yeah,
artist playlist. I was like,
yeah,
wait.
yeah. I was delighted with that because it was cool because it was also relative to my country. It was
Hmm.
called Hands in the Air, and Hands in the Air, and Air means Ireland in Irish. So I was like, it
Right.
was cool to be able to, play a part in the country sort of music scene in that sense, and to be recognised as well, by the unseen force, whoever decides who goes on playlists.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, it was great, and I've been adding on one every year now, but I just think that one was probably my most sort of truest body of work. I think I was kind of really being true to myself, and I made that and just made the music that I wanted to make.
Mhm.
But as far as unreleased, it's between I'm Better Off Alone, which I'm really proud of. I just think the song just tied together. It was kind of like it almost wrote itself. It just flowed as I was making it. It actually has a 100 gex sample in it, which everyone finds really weird. The main the main hook in it is from Money Machine, which no one recognizes until I play it for them. Then it's between that or another, which is actually the last track on the EP called Poolbeg Chimneys, which is that sort of breakbeat euphoric techno that I was talking about. Um, yeah, like I'm a very sample based producer, so like that's when I'm forming songs, that's usually at the core of it is the sample and how I manipulate that sample. But yeah, so that's kind of been the three probably proudest tracks. But again, I don't think I've even made my best stuff yet. I still think my best is yet to come, still to be made. You know.
I mean, yeah, the more you describe it, the more I'm like, dang, like in another
Yeah.
EP, like what will you be doing?
Oh yeah.
Um,
There's going to be a few EPs this year, definitely. I think.
ooh, I'm excited. Now for a little bit of a fun question, what album really changed your life, and why?
I'm probably gonna relate this to electronic music because I think it's just, I think where I am now would be the best representation. It has to be Burial's Untrue. That album for me, it wasn't that I disliked electronic music before that. Like I'd say I was a casual listener, and then I listened to Burial's Untrue maybe 4 years ago, and it was like this realization of what electronic music could be, if that makes sense. Um, and then I watched like a whole lot of videos about it, like how we sort of like there's no quantizing in the song, so it's pretty much there's a lot of off time rhythms, and the whole sort of feeling of the album was incredible. Like I hadn't heard anything like it. um I kind of describe it to my mates as like post rave music. It's the music
Right.
you listen to after you've been to a rave, when you're on that bus home, and it's like 5 in the morning and you just want to sleep. And yeah, it was just incredibly emotional album, and incredibly just diverse and extremely rich album with its sounds. And yeah, I just from an artist's perspective, I admire it so much. And like, like musically, I'd say you can't really hear the influence in it, but it's definitely the thing that influenced me to make electronic music. You know,
Hmm.
that's how I describe
Right.
it. Just an amazing
Well,
album.
yeah, I'm so glad that that was the one that really sparked like, dang, like
Yeah, and
I could
thank
do
God I
this.
discovered it. Thank God I discovered it. Like,
And then as a final question, thinking
cool.
back towards, you mentioned basically being involved in music for like your whole life.
Oh
So,
yeah, completely.
what are the biggest lessons that you would give like a younger version of yourself? Like you get starting out, you know, in your band
Yeah.
or starting out as Farlo, like what would be some tips you would give yourself?
Okay, I think first would be take your time. That would be the first one because there's so many instances over the years. Because I produce hip hop as well, where I've like I wouldn't say I'm a decent hip hop producer, but it's not something that I'm overly passionate about. So, well, except when I make a song that I really like, obviously. But so through like the years, I've been producing on and off for a few artists. That's actually how I got that gig down in February last year before COVID, and I kind of like rushed into it when I maybe sending off my work that wasn't necessarily my best, if you know what I mean, instead of giving myself time to sort of hone, hone my talents and sort of craft, my best possible stuff. So that'll be the first thing. Because I have to remember I'm only young, so I have a lot of time to, uh, to work and perfect my stuff. Number two would probably be make the music that you really want to make. But at the same time, I'd say there's no harm in making music that's a little bit more accessible.
Hmm.
If you want to get more people listening to your music, like that's why I'm doing that side project. It's grabbing in a lot of people's attention. It's people are enjoying it. I'm enjoying making it, which is the main thing. And yeah, that's the main thing. And just making music that you enjoy and other people can enjoy. And I suppose the third one would be um, communication with other artists. You want to sort of hold yourself to a certain level where if you're communicating with another artist that might be a bit bigger than you, to not feel like you're talking up to them, but to feel like you're both collaborating as not as equals in that sense, and have the confidence in yourself. If you know your music's good and you're talking to another artist, like there's no reason why that artist shouldn't work with you unless we're talking two different genres. So have faith in your music and have good confidence in your music, and also really work on your communication skills, because you don't want to be like don't want to come off as like extremely arrogant, or
Right.
just be a normal person that's interested in working with someone. So yeah, communication is very big as well.
You really came with some amazing tips there.
Yeah, I ju- it's just from the mistakes
I
I've
felt like
made.
I was learning there.
Yeah, it's just off the top of my head, I just kind of think through not mistake, like yeah, kind of mistakes. I just want to point out I was never arrogant to anyone, but if I could go back in time, there are a few things that I would have changed how I
Right.
approached, if you know what I mean.
It always be like that.
Oh yeah, it's just like God, like I'd love to work with that artist now, but like 2 years ago, I was just absolutely ridiculous, like sending them the worst possible stuff, like.
Right, right, right.
But yeah, you know, just enjoy what you do. I think that's the main thing.
Right. Well, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much for having me,
Um,
man. Thank you.
nope, no problem. And we're gonna close the interview by a song that you picked yourself.
Yeah,
Here's
pay,
Solid Ground by
uh,
Page One.
yeah.
Um,
He's also a producer from my village, actually.
oh well, there you go.
Yeah,
Connection.
yeah. He's the
Um,
man. He's a great producer, doing great
all right.
things.
Well, enjoy, listeners.